One reads and hears of the city of Hollywood, and one is likely to get the impression that the actual settlement is merely the matter of a few houses built around four corners, and for the rest it is probably surmised the much publicized town is filled with studios. The truth of it is that Hollywood is a city of beautiful homes spreading over vast areas of ground, and only an occasional studio may be seen. Then they are not recognized as studios. The fronts are so artistically planned that one is likely to pass them by for homes. The much heralded Hollywood Boulevard is the black ribbon seen running across the lower half of the picture. From left to right, the boulevard runs eastward to the real center of this busy suburb of Los Angeles. The part of filmland that is visible in this photo is really the newest and smallest part. The business district of Hollywood is farther eastward than the photo shows, and the studios are scattered about through the residential sections and on the outskirts. This picture is a continuation of Hollywood on the Boulevard, and looks right down the famous pathway into the business district. In spite of appearing to be closely built, there is not a home, apartment house, or bungalow court that is not surrounded by spacious gardens, giving the entire suburb a uniform beauty. The business district supports many banks. Many Los Angeles banks have branches there, and the Security Trust and Savings Bank erected a 10-story building at the corner of Cahuenga and Hollywood Boulevard, which is the crossroads of Southern California. At the present time, there are 3 12-story buildings being erected in this village that started out to be the exclusive section of residences. Hollywood supports one of the largest athletic clubs in the South, with a membership roll of celebrities that challenges any other private organization in the country. The Hollywood Chamber of Commerce has made its city a recognized center of the fourth industry in the world. This is a real long shot of the Hollywood residential section. The camera was looking right toward the foothills that bank the north side of the fair city. Over the hills going through Cahuenga Pass is Universal City, and west of that is Laurel Canyon, one of the beautiful natural parks of Hollywood. Many of the stars of filmland have built homes in the canyon, and others have built cabins farther out, where they spend the summer months. The tiny houses that dot the landscape in the photo appear to be built after the same pattern, but each and every one is individual in design. Many of them are of the old Spanish architecture, others of the colonial period, and some look as though they might have been imported from Holland, but all differ from the other. The larger homes of the stars are in the Beverly Hills section, that is a continuation of Hollywood as one travels westward. The population of Hollywood is 100,000. Chaplin Studios. One might mistake the executive offices of the Chaplin Studio for a set of Old English houses, so unique and decorative they are to the vicinity. On the lot and back of the offices there is an open stage, where the framework is seen. Sets are built there in the open, and canvas is drawn over the top of the stage to diffuse the strong sunlight, and yet have enough natural light to avoid the use of artificial illumination. Directly behind the open stage is the one large enclosed one. There, sets are made that must be protected from the weather. For instance, the wallpaper would crack off and the walls warp if a library set were built in the range of sunlight. At the left is the row of dressing rooms. This studio is apparently small, but considering that there is but one company working there, it is spacious. Near the upper left-hand corner and on the same lot is a home that Chaplin once occupied. Fox Studios. One seldom hears of Sunset Boulevard or Western Avenue, but they are equally as important as the famed Hollywood Boulevard, and right at the crossroads, the Fox Studio is located. The Fox organization itself is a huge one, and in order to keep all their stars at work, they must have the space for sets to accommodate all their companies. On the lot in the upper half of the photo are all the exterior sets. The size of these range from a cottage to a whole street. There are no closed stages on that lot. The large buildings, there are the property room, carpenter shop, and electric plant. In the foreground is the more substantial part of the Fox Studio. There are 3 huge closed stages, and right down in the front of the picture is the laboratory. The little cottages in a group are individual offices of each producing unit, where the director, scenario writer, cameraman, and their assistants make their headquarters. Goldwyn Studios. The front lot, term for that part of the studio containing the stages, has 3 great glass stages set like white rectangular tablets on a wide expanse of green lawn. This part of the lot is bounded on its Washington Boulevard side by a white colonnade, masking offices and dressing rooms that stretch 2 city blocks. Parallel with this on the other side of the lawns is another long building housing the scenario writers, publicity writers, artists, and the property rooms. Beyond this building are 2 more glass stages and an enormous dark stage built of steel girders with the dimensions of a railroad depot. 4 of the ordinary studio stages could be moved inside it. It is said to be the largest stage in the world. Forming the upright of a huge letter F with the 2 long office buildings are executive offices, the 3-story wardrobe building, the power plant, and the block-long Carpenter Shop. Smaller offices and workshops are scattered in the interstices. Altogether, the Goldwyn Studio covers 52 acres in Culver City, 6 acres of which are in floor space. Ince Studios. When Thomas H. Ince conceived the idea of building his own studio, he was determined to have it different from the others. Among other plans submitted to him was the one that suggested to him the plan he finally carried out. He had the whole front building made a replica of George Washington's home at Mount Vernon. The result is that it looks like a beautiful residence from the Boulevard. The Ince Studio is right in the center of Culver City. In back of the impressive office building are 2 glass stages. Ince only has 2 or 3 companies working continually, and there is ample space to accommodate them on the 2 stages. Mr. Ince does not lease out space to any other company. His equipment is new and complete, to the extent of having his own laboratory, generating plant, and carpenter shops. There is also a large wardrobe department. Lasky Studio. Although the Lasky Studio only occupies 2 square blocks, it contains as many enclosed stages as the studio stretching over acres of land. To the left of the photograph is Vine Street, one of the main cross streets in Hollywood. Along Vine Street, the studio faces. The row of buildings on the street contains the property room, the casting director's office, that is located there so people seeking employment don't have to go through the studio, the front gate, the press agents have made this entrance for stars famous, and farther down, the heads of departments have offices. In the foreground, the 3 large buildings are the closed or dark stages. That is where all the sets are built and the interiors are filmed. The long building in the rear contains dressing rooms and the wardrobe department. The smaller structures toward the right are carpenter and electric shops. Selig Studios. Colonel W.N. Selig's first idea in building a studio was to house his marvelous collection of wild animals, and to make motion pictures that included them. Later, it developed that the photoplay was more of an attraction than a zoo, so he compromised and made the whole front section of his property into a huge park and zoo for the public, and fenced off the other half for stages where features could be made. Nearly every requirement for a production may be found right on the lot. There are swamps, a grove of tall trees that have passed for a forest many times, and a small lake. The large buildings on the rear of the lot are the dark stages of the Mayer organization. That whole section of the studio is leased by Louis B. Mayer, an absolutely separate firm. The Selig Studio is about the only one in Los Angeles or Hollywood that is open to the public. The studio faces on Mission Road and is just outside of Los Angeles proper. Metro Studios. The Metro Studio covers the largest area of all the studios in the bounds of Hollywood. The larger studios are usually found farther out, but this one covers 5 city blocks. One of the blocks is given to the offices, closed stages, and property equipment. There are 3 huge dark stages crowded closely together. The property room and carpenter shop occupies a building as large as one of the stages, while the laboratory is in one of the smaller houses at the back corner of the main lot. The offices that face front are on Lillian Way and Cahuenga Avenue. Between the offices and the stages is one of the individual features of this studio. It is a Japanese garden with rustic bridges, a small lake, and native shrubbery. It was made there for a feature picture for one of Metro's stars, and because of its beauty was preserved after the picture was finished. Because of the type of productions turned out by this organization, they maintain the 4 other lots for street sets of vast proportions. The space in command permits them to build a complete street. Pickford Fairbanks Studios. The most noticeable feature on the photo of the Pickford Fairbanks Studio is the remains of the famous Robin Hood set. It is interesting to note that, awesome as the castle looks from the front finished side, the actual construction scaffolding that backs this set is cobwebby by comparison. The photo was made when the first half of the castle was finished and the second section was under construction. Toward the front of the lot, which is the upper half of the picture, is the large closed stage. This is where Mary Pickford works when they are filming the interiors. Beside the patch of lawn in front are the offices of the Pickford Fairbanks producing units. There are directors, scenario writers, casting director, and executive offices. This building faces on Santa Monica Boulevard, which is one of the 3 main boulevards of Hollywood. It runs parallel to Hollywood and Sunset Boulevards, and there is a distance of 6 blocks between each. Robertson Cole Studios. The Robertson Cole Studios adjoin the United, but they are entirely separate organizations. The front of this lot is outlined with buildings and a wall of old Spanish architecture, with a patio between 2 of the stages. There are 3 large dark stages. Those may be seen in the foreground of the photo. Directly in back of the stages is the electric generating plant, the garages, and the prop room and carpenter shop. Behind this group of buildings is the back lot. Over this vast field are all the exterior sets and streets. There is probably a replica of streets on that lot of every country on the globe. This space is not all consumed by the active companies on the RC lot. Many times, companies from other studios will rent a street there or have a set built when space will not permit it on their own studio lot. The RC Studio faces on Gower Street in Hollywood. Roach Studios. At the entrance of Culver City on Washington Boulevard, that slices across the photograph, is the Hal Roach Studio, where the Harold Lloyd comedies and other Hal Roach productions are made. As is the case on most comedy lots, their largest stage is an open one. The entrance to the studio is surrounded by beautiful walks, a green park with a fountain playing in front of the main door. The front building holds the offices of the casting director, executive branch of the organization, and directors. The large light stage at the right in the picture is flanked by dressing rooms, while the stage at the left, that is half open and half closed, adjoins the electric powerhouse. Smaller structures about the back of the lot are property rooms, carpenter shop, and garages, while farther back are the street sets. The Roach Studio is one of the 3 large ones in Culver City. Roach has built up the studio and organized his companies since 1919, when he moved there from an obscure location in Glendale, a suburb of Los Angeles. United Studios. The United Studio is probably the largest and best-equipped leasing studio in Hollywood. While the president and owner of this lot carry on their own productions, they are small in number compared to the companies renting space there. There are 5 large closed stages of great dimensions, but the one that occupies the back portion of the lot is equal in size to 3 of them. The open lot that is covered with fragments of buildings supplies the street sets for the various companies there. In the midst of these exterior locations is a large parking space for companies and employees' cars. The executive offices face the street, while the offices of individual companies are in separate buildings. A stage or portion of one is assigned to each producing unit, in proportion to the number of interior sets required. This studio is located next to the Robertson Cole Studio. Universal City. Universal City is over the hill in back of Hollywood, and spreads itself out over a part of the Lancashire Valley. Not only has Universal many companies of their own at work constantly, but many independent producers lease stage and office space there. There are 8 closed stages of massive proportions that are built closely together. The dressing rooms are built in a row in back of the first dark stage. Scattered about the lot are small buildings for the independent company's offices. The property room adjoins the first stage and occupies the same amount of space as the stage. The Carpenter Shop is a long building at the back of the lot, adjoining the electric generating house. Stretching back a mile from the front lot, the open sets and streets are to be seen dotting the landscape. On this big back ranch, as it is called by Universalites, the huge Monte Carlo set of Erich von Stroheim's picture Foolish Wives was built. Vitagraph Studios. The Vitagraph Studio is the only one that remained in its original location since pioneer days, when film companies first settled in Hollywood. Then they had but 1 or 2 open stages, a few weather-beaten exterior sets, and an office building. With time, this studio had been built up, and space about the studio has been enlarged, until the ground it now covers is equivalent to 4 square blocks for the main lot, and several acres for their open work. There are 2 closed stages and several open ones. One of the big open sets is preserved for continual use in their film. That is a New York street that can be changed easily into any location that is supposed to be in that city. The hillside on the back of the lot is built up in the natural rugged scenery for Western pictures.